It's time to review the Reaper of World of Tanks console, and this is the Tier 7 KV2 premium variant, the Dreadnought. And of course, this is the tank that gets the SU-152 gun that has 250mm of heat pen to be able to do 700 alpha, and it's a heavy tank at Tier 7. Yes, this thing is mobile as well, being able to do 37km an hour pretty consistently, as well as being able to use the HE rounds that are famed for the KV2 with 86mm of penetration and 910 alpha. Yeah, I absolutely love the Dreadnought KV2. Let's jump into some gameplay. So the first map we're gifted with is Westfield, and this is one of my favourite maps in the game. It is one of probably 5 maps that I think I can consistently do really well on throughout every single time I play on it, regardless of the tank. And that's because this map is really great for all of the different kind of tank types that you can play within World of Tanks, albeit not when your whole team go over this way, as opposed to taking a pretty critical area of the map, which is the Kia footholds or foothills. But nonetheless, back to the Dreadnought. What does this thing really do in the game? Well, it's the fact that it is the iconic KV2 with its turret, with its hull armour, and yes, they are pretty much exactly the same, but the upgrade that you get over the KV2 is both the accuracy of this, as well as being able to use 250mm heat pen and consistently deal damage over about 16 seconds to reload to do 700 alpha, meaning that you can do about 2,800 damage per minute, which for a tier 7 heavy tank is really, really good. Although I wouldn't necessarily call it your traditional heavy tank, since you're not going to be bouncing anything, and actually you'll probably be taking more hits than some of the mediums at tier 7. But nonetheless, it's a really, really fun one, and we're going to showcase why that is, or at least hope to, in these live gameplays. It could go terribly, it could go well, but at least you'll see the actual tank in action and what you can expect. Now, unless it goes really, really bad, and then there's no point in showcasing you a game where I get taken out in 5 seconds. But what you can see here is a Absolution that's trying to hightail his way over towards us. Key thing about the Absolution is the turret armour is garbage, and so we're able to kind of probably go through this as well, because we've got AP. Unfortunately, we don't manage to go through both of them. Got to be careful from the left-hand side, and artillery, because artillery is disgusting on KV2s, as you probably well know if you've played any of the KV2 line. Now, we need to be careful from the opposite side of the ridge, and you can see a ton of rounds coming in, artillery doing its usual. The M44, probably one of the most tier for tier broken artillery in the game. And the M44, as with pretty much all of the American tech tree vehicles, is really, really annoying to actually play against, because you're always getting smacked, like, super consistently. Now we're going to go after the Citadel over here, and then we can maybe move on to the KV3 to help out our OI experimental, although he's looking pretty low and he's probably going to get taken out right here. So we don't want to overcommit, so we're going to stay behind this area. But what we will do is try and use the gun depression of the vehicle to maybe get a shell into him before he's able to do anything. We don't manage to pen, and now the slow reverse speed may catch us out in this tank. Doesn't manage to, but yeah, we still have to be very aware of the M44. We're spotting this KV, which is nice, and hopefully we can get some assistance damage for do that. I'll try and get behind this this kind of building here, and then we can move on with our game, and then potentially turn around and deal some damage. So yes, the tank is able to get some spotting damage, but you're not supposed to rely on that. You definitely shouldn't be relying on it, because it's not a spotting tank. But what we will do now, since the KV3 has fired, we can kind of keep ourselves occupied, or at least try and come round and put a nice round into the backside of the KV3. We can obviously place a nice round into him, and then we're going to go right past, and then we'll bait him into over-rotating the turret, which is nice, and then back again, and then you can kind of bait a shell, or at least you can stop them from reloading as quickly. The enemy artillery actually misses, which is nice, and then we can finish off this guy really easily there. 280 damage into him. I needed to get rid of him, and then we can kind of move on. The enemy artillery is probably the one looking at us, and you can see he's actually coming in. Yes, typical. It does manage to hit us, but it doesn't matter all too much. And yeah, a pretty mediocre game for the Dreadnought, and even though you've done nearly 2,000 combined damage, that is a mediocre game in the Dreadnought, because, you know, when you only have to deal 1 or 2 shots to do the amount of damage we're on right now, yeah, it soon racks up and you can actually end up having crazy high damage results in this vehicle. Now we do manage to spot, and we managed to poke a little lucky shell in there. The artillery is definitely going to be looking still at us, and we've got now the enemy T-67 who may actually out DPM us here, but he does miss the first shell, which means he is in a bit of a disadvantage. Artillery is going to be coming in, so we need to kind of bait and switch. Hopefully we'll be able to do that. We definitely don't want to miss this T-67 because that will be devastating, and so if we do miss him, that will probably be curtains for us. So what we're going to do is just make sure that we are able to kind of predict where he's going to be, or at least open up the vision lines to where he is most likely going to be. Now, whether he's going to try and come from behind us, from over here, was probably the case, since he's now become undetected, and the tank is pretty blind. Yeah, as I predicted, the T-67 does actually come from behind us, as you know, someone who probably would do best from doing that is expecting. So we're going to go off in after the T-67, assuming that we are going to be able to kind of out reload him. We won't over rotate us, but it's looking like we can finish him off. This guy doesn't seem to know how to aim, and we definitely do. Artillery almost hits us there, which is nice. Showcases, well, not our artillery, but it was well, it was our artillery not being hit by the enemy ones, which is nice. And now there is just the Sturmpanzer left on the enemy team, kind of the the only other derp left on the enemy team that we could probably get taken out from, but nonetheless we can use the speed of this tank to potentially get there and deal some more damage. Could have gone for the blind fire, or at least the unaimed fire on the Sturmpanzer, but it's not going to be worth it, so we'll take the more slow approach and actually go towards him. Hellcat manages to bounce off of him, but luckily with our support we should be able to deal with him. Sturmpanzer is very slow at turning, so I doubt that he'll be able to out-traverse the Hellcat 105, or at least get the round off on him. But nonetheless, I'm assuming that we'll be able to just come in and finish him off, which we do. So there you go, a first kind of game in the Dreadnought in a long time, and showcasing why this tank is still powerful in today's meta. And it really is. We're going to play another gameplay live, so you can see kind of what the good, the bad and the ugly about the Dreadnought is, because it's not all sunshine and roses when playing this vehicle. There are some negatives, and we're going to showcase them. So then, the next replay, Prokhorovka, a map that it's probably not best suited for the Dreadnought, but nonetheless we'll give it a go, and we'll showcase whether you can still have good games. Now, I typically on World of Tanks will take the mid-ridge position, because he can play pretty passively, there's no artillery that can be a pain, and that's usually where I will object to actually going in the mid-ridge, and potentially we might be able to hit one of these Hotchkiss. We don't manage to, but probably fairly close actually with that round. Nonetheless, we'll now progress. There's no artillery to worry about, as we were saying, and so yeah, you can take these kind of central positions a little bit easier, and actually you can poke the mid-ridge at a specific point that actually blocks a lot of the fire that you can take. It usually only works at the beginning of the game, and you can line up with the light tanks that crest the ridge line, which is really nice. And actually you can see us doing it here, as this Hotchkiss almost takes probably 90% of his hit points out of the game, but nonetheless we do miss the Hotchkiss, which is a little bit annoying, since that can be a real pain as the game goes on, because it is so small and so tiny. We have to be careful now of the people that may have gotten up onto the hill area, and of course we don't know what they are. The enemy Dreadnought could have gone up there, so we've got to play it a little bit safe and just wait for our team to spot anyone that may be up there. As you can see, the T20 has made it up there, so these are all the things that you can use on Prokhorovka, especially if you're in a medium tank. This is probably a better position for a medium tank, because you can be a lot more consistent. I accidentally reload there. That is the biggest misplay of probably the day, because we could have taken a nice hit on this T29. But remember, the reload of the of the dreadnought's not terrible, so you are able to kind of dish out the damage fairly consistently, so it's not the end of the world. But what we will go for is the Jagdpanzer, and we miss. And yeah, this is probably not the nicest of aim shots, because we were kind of up in the air looking at the top half of his tank, so less likely to hit, but I was expecting at least some damage there. Nonetheless, we're going to now go after this T29. We'll go for the unaimed shot, which of course is the one that actually hits, because why not? Anyway, 666 damage, and that's literally what the Dreadnought's all about. It's just, yeah, I absolutely love this tank, not purely because it is a KV2, not purely because it's a tank that does really well in these sorts of matchups where you are top tier, but also because this vehicle is iconic in all senses. You know, it's an iconic tank from back in the day, albeit, you know, it might not be, it's like the mercenary version, the kind of fake version of the KV2, of course the KV2 being the real version of the tank that was actually produced, this being World of Tanks console fake mashup. Yeah. Either way, I really do enjoy playing this tank, and hopefully we'll be able to do it justice in the remainder of this game if we don't get taken out by some TD that sat on top of the hill, and he may potentially be aiming at us. We can't actually see him at the minute, but we need to start doing damage. The Cromwell Knight is being a bit of a rat at this point. It's probably the J Panther still over there that we need to be careful of. The Knight has now come right over, and he's progressing. We get hit by someone in the back, and now we'll put a nice round into the Knight, which is nice, and then we can kind of back down the hill area, which you can always do to avoid getting hit from the hill. The snakebite on the enemy team has kind of crossed, so snakebites and the light tanks are probably the bane of most KV2/Dreadnought drivers, or any slow heavy tank, because it means that you have to hit them to kind of remove the majority of their hit points, and then you can kind of go on with your game as you'd expect to. We get a little bit of lag there, right, just as I fired, which is a pain, but yeah, you definitely don't want to be playing these tanks if you've got lag, because remember, if you miss a shell with these, you have a long reload, and a lot of these tanks will just be able to farm you up, so be careful of that. The enemy Dreadnought is now progressing towards us, so we have to be careful. Hopefully our team can punish him, because he's in a bit of a vulnerable position there. We'll go for the shot on him. We don't manage to hit it, and now he's going to be progressing even more. Hopefully the team will actually be looking in this direction. Nope, of course they're not. He's actually pushing right the way down. Hoping they'll actually notice. He manages to miss, which is actually super nice, because now what we can do is as well as actually just trying to escape and get over this next hill, so that, you know, we got a bit of cover between us and the Dreadnought. We can also then put a bit of cover between us and the snakebite who's going to be coming as well, and also it means that we're out of render range from anyone that is on the hill area. Snakebite is now coming towards us. Obviously we're not a bot, so we can actually finish him off. That could have gone badly if I said that and we missed, but yeah, luckily we get him out of the game. Now we have to beware of the Dreadnought, because that is a tank that you definitely don't want to be getting hit by. I know that very well. Not purely because we're playing it, but yeah, we can place a nice round into the Dreadnought there. In these sort of scenarios, yes, you would ideally like to fully aim, but you don't really have time to do that, and I don't want to sit there in front of one and potentially get taken out myself. The game is also coming to a close, so if we can get as many shots off before the game ends, that is ideally what you want to do, and also it means that you might be able to come away with some sort of victory just from purely having the damage. You can see we've done nearly 3,000 damage within this result. I do need to start doing something to kind of amplify our game a little bit more. Hopefully we can finish off this setter. Oh, we don't, and that is probably game over for us. We'll probably not be able to get another damaging hit in this replay, which is a bit disappointing, but nonetheless, oh well, we still get actually in render range of the hill apparently. I was surprised about that. We seem to be quite far away, but yeah, 2,720 damage. Maybe we'll throw in an extra replay into this one before we finish it up to showcase a little bit more, because that was a bit of a, although we had an okay result, it's not the Dreadnought. Now then, the bonus game in this kind of live gameplay review is the Teakval Ridge, and this is a map that I absolutely love playing. It's a map that probably gets a lot of less love than it probably should, and a map that I always find you can do pretty well on in most tanks, and much like Westfield that we showcased earlier, you know, it's available to use pretty much any tank that you want in this match. Thank you very much, Motherland. Now what we can do is actually push forward on this flank. I always like going this flank in my heavy tank / mediums to kind of progress and then go forward from here and decide what I want to do. Otherwise, if I'm playing in my tank destroyer, I typically will sit on the hill to begin with to see where the enemies are actually deploying, and then I decide which flank is best for us. And then kind of from that we decide what we're going to do. You can see there that there's a few tanks moving over this side. We've got an Inferno, a Type 59-2, and I highly recommend that you always check what tanks are coming to your side so you know which ones can be the most dangerous from taking one singular shot. For example, if you know there's a FV4005, or if you know that there's a dreadnought on the enemy team that's going to be near you, then you probably don't want to be sitting in front of them, and it might be better that you actually poke someone like an Inferno, where they're going to be dealing less damage if they hit you comparatively to a dreadnought, for example. In this sort of replay, of course, it's a little bit dangerous for us to kind of push in because we don't know how many people are going to be sat right next to the Inferno. It could be loads, it could be none. So sometimes fortune does actually favour the bold, but often when you're playing the dreadnought, it doesn't. So yeah, there's that. We'll go for the shot on him now, and then we can finish him off. Always be aware that there can be some sneaky little rats that do decide to go in the central position over there when you're moving forward. But now it looks like we've kind of borne a little hole within this kind of area of the map. There is the M56 Scorpion, which is not a fun one, but he's been taken out blind anyway, so we don't have to worry about him. We do get spotted here. I don't know what it was by. It may have been this VK, but we're not 100% sure, so I don't want to make any bold claims, but we'll put a nice potential round into him, but we don't manage to hit it. So these are the sort of things you want to be doing. Be very, very careful when playing this tank, because you never know where someone's going to be, especially if they're in something that hit us there. I don't know what is that that's hitting us. Must be someone sat up on the hill or something like that, kind of arched up. Must be a tank destroyer. But yeah, he does manage to hit us twice, which is a little bit annoying. We kind of reverse up the slope to just see if we can get some vision, which we don't manage to do. But there is a Type 59. There's also someone sat in the bush up here. He's just been ammo racked, I think. That's very unlucky for him. But yeah, now we've got a Borsig that's sat up there. Maybe we'll be able to actually hit him. Don't manage to do that, but we do actually get some spotting assist damage in the dreadnought, which is probably less common than actually one-shotting someone, but there we go. And what you can do now is just push on this flank, and this is the typical Teepval Ridge kind of meta. If you go this side, typically you win this corner, and then you can kind of hold off. You just deal with anyone that's kind of in that area, and then you deal with the rest of the game. We'll go for the YOLO shot. Of course it hits, because why not? It's a KB2. And sometimes these games end up like this. Most of the times they don't, in terms of when you try and pull off those shots. It's just that they always look more spectacular when you're actually doing it in a winning battle as opposed to a losing one. But there you go. Now it's time to go after the remaining tanks on the enemy team, who are going to be holed up in this area. Now they do appear to be out in the open, so we're just going to wait here till someone lights them up and give them some spotting damage. You can see some shells coming in. I don't really want to chance it, so we are going to actually wait. We'll put a nice round into the Black Prince, which we do finish off. Probably should have held it for the VZ, but yeah, we can just wait here. Hopefully we'll get some damage. Maybe it'll come to us, but these are the games that you don't like in the dreadnought, and ones that when you've been trying to get your third mark, or where you're trying to go for the high damage standing, or you're just trying to get the highest damage result in the dreadnought. Yeah, when you get a steamrolling 13-1, it is not the one that you're after. So I guess you guys have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly within this kind of review, and that is exactly what we were aiming to do: get a good, a bad, and just one that just didn't go the way that we wanted it to, but necessarily wasn't that bad. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Of course, we are on 2 marks. Maybe I'll go for a 3rd at some point in this vehicle. But let me know what you think of the Dreadnought. Is it the kind of annihilator of World of Tanks console? It certainly is very powerful, and under the right circumstances and when you haven't got lag or anything like that, then yes, this tank is outrageously good and super easy to consistently deal damage. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you join me in the next one, and I'll see you there. Goodbye.